Hey, Scott, just let us know we're on. We're going to be drinking here.
Yeah, we're actually mid-sip right now. Whoa, oh my God.
Sorry, you guys, we couldn't wait for you this time. We had to pour a little bit of the Sauvignon Blanc to get our day started. So
it's a warm summer afternoon here.
It's a beautiful warm summer afternoon here at Frog's Leap. We got a ton of visitors today, and the big puffy clouds not normal. It's helping keep the temperature down a little bit.
Well, what do you think the weather's going to be? How's your knee acting up there? What do you think? What's the weather going to be like?
By the way, be nice to me. It's almost Father's Day, and you're a father now. You think almost going to be bringing you breakfast in bed tomorrow morning?
You know, almost down in the city right now getting bagels. So it's,
getting ready. She's 3, so
yeah, well, she's got a little help getting bagels.
She plans ahead. Well, welcome, you guys. I'm John Williams.
And I'm Rory Williams.
And we're glad to be here today to talk about 3 of our new releases that you guys are going to have in your hands if you don't have them already. And we're excited about these wines. Starting with the
new release of the Sauvignon Blanc,
2021.
So we're always arguing about the Fence Pros problem. Which vintage of the Sauvignon Blanc is this? The 42nd vintage of it? Or is this the 41st vintage?
This is the 41st vintage.
41st
right?
vintage, right? Yeah.
Right. So you're 81 to
like
2000.
The 40th anniversary, sort of, because we started in 81. This is the 2021.
God. You know.
But then it's the 41st vintage.
I keep forgetting you didn't study math in college.
See, this is the problem. Is we kept, you know, another winery you may have heard of down the road from us was very, very vocal about their 40th anniversary, and they had it on their label and everything, and. We ended up getting into so many philosophical arguments about, well, no, this year's the 40th, and next year's the 41st, and then we got to the 41st, and we realized, no, wait a second, that was probably the 40th. And by then, we'd already labeled everything, and so we're not prepared for such events that are apparently great for marketing, but we're just not so great at that kind of stuff.
Yeah, marketing maybe not be our first call. But welcome to you all. Hope life is great for all of you guys. Hope you are drinking well and having a good time and enjoying your summer. It's been a good summer. You know, I was out walking the vineyards this morning. You've got some grapes out there this year.
I know. I could not give you the same answer last year.
No. Believe me, we can use a crop this year.
No, we have an absolutely. You know, I feel like all of us watching this at this point, we'll take a little bit of normalcy. Normalcy is good. Normal's nice.
What's normal anymore?
Yeah. And so the grapevines look normal, and we're out there with like party hats on basically because everything looks normal. Vines look beautiful. The leaves are growing, shoots are growing. Clusters are kind of in their BB and up stage right now. So the clusters are fully formed and are through set and gonna be softening up in the next month. So. Yeah.
So when do you? So we call this veraison, right? When the whites soften and the reds start turning.
Exactly. So yeah. we're about 3 weeks out from the start of veraison in some of the earliest whites, essentially. Yeah. 3 weeks, 4 weeks out. But right now is kind of, for me out in the vineyards, this is the busy time of year. You know, harvest is obviously an incredibly busy time of year, very hectic, very fun. Right now is when you're trying to make everything, set everything up so that harvest is fun instead of a total disaster. And so we're just kind of running around like mad, tying up shoots, shoots that have fallen over. We're putting them up into the wires and tying them up, taking off leaves in key positions, taking off laterals, taking off suckers, checking new vines for planting, tying new vines up the stake.
God, you're exhausting me just listening to this.
Would you shut up already? Let me enjoy the wine.
But it looks like you're going to have to do some green harvesting too, right?
Probably not in the Sauvignon Blanc. You know, what's actually interesting is we had what we call set. So this is when all the grape flowers have self-fertilized, and they're starting to turn themselves into fruit. You know, that's one of the most sensitive times of the year for grapes. That's when they're basically Goldilocks, and like they don't want lots of heat, they don't want lots of cold, they don't want it to be too windy, they don't want rain, they don't want too much. They don't want rain, so they don't want too much water. But if it's too dry, they're also not real happy. It's kind of when they're feeling their adolescence. You know, they're feeling very sensitive and everything. They're very important. But it's also, it's a critical time of year because that's when if the grapes have a poor
They're having sex, that's why.
with themselves. It's very
well. I know, but you know what?
Grape flowers are self-fertilizing.
We don't discriminate.
If you want to continue the metaphor, by all means.
No. Let's talk about this wine a little bit.
50 shades of Sauvignon Blanc. No, not so much. But 21, this year looking totally normal. 21 last year, not normal at all. It was very, very dry last year.
And we had like 40 or 50% off in this vintage, right?
We were 40%.
We're so lucky to have one bottle to taste with you all.
We were essentially half off in Sauvignon Blanc. That's pretty nuts for us. Sauvignon Blanc's been a part of Frogsley. We were joking about 40th, 41st vintage. It's the only wine we've made every year since the very beginning of Frogsley with the 81 Sauvignon Blanc. And I believe some of your even 1980 jug fizz that you drank in the creation of Frogsley was probably Sauvignon Blanc.
That was some fine wine.
Fine wine. We drunk well before its time, I might.
Just to give you some perspective, I don't think we've made this little Sauvignon Blanc since 1989.
Yep.
Okay, so it's this is a vintage but it's good for you guys in that to get your hands on all that you can get because there's not much of it, but the quality. I mean, this wine is absolutely gorgeous.
That's the silver lining to 2021. And a spoiler alert, you're going to hear this about a lot of 2021s as you hear us jab about them over the next few years. Just an awesome year. I mean, there's no other way of putting it.
And now we get awesome and a little bit more in the same vintage. Maybe we're going to do that this year.
You got your awesome and you've got your tossum. So you got awesome tossum. This is an awesome tossum vintage.
I'm going to toss some of this down right now.
There you go.
Hey, now this wine is also an important wine for us because you would think after 42 years, it's going to be our 42nd year, that we would have this pretty much down to a formula. Don't go back to it, all right? You'd think we'd have this down, but believe me, you guys, we're always thinking about what we can do to make this wine a little better, and we have introduced some concrete aging into this wine based on the experimental wine, the concrete aged Sauvignon Blanc that we may soon see a bottle of. Right?
You guys will see soon enough the results of, some of you may have had some of the Rachel Rossi Reserve Sauvignon Blanc, and that's started as an experiment with fermenting a special block of Sauvignon Blanc in concrete and in a concrete egg and holding it in there for a whole year.
A whole year on the lease, yeah.
And then holding it in bottle for a whole year. And we've continued to experiment with some of our best blocks of Sauvignon Blanc from Rossi, which you guys have heard us talk about a lot, from the Leeds, Chavez Leeds Vineyard, vines planted in the early 80s as well. And so we made an investment in, just before the start of the 2021 harvest, rolled out a bunch of concrete eggs. And that is the start of a kind of path forward for the Sauvignon Blanc, which we're really excited about. And it's the 2021 SB is what we're calling the Ground Cuvée SB. Is this has about 2% concrete in it, 2% from aged in concrete. But that percentage will go up over the next few years, and that's in an effort to basically add depth, add some material, add some interest, some complexity to the Sauvignon Blanc, but keeping it Frogsley Sauvignon Blanc, keeping it the crisp, straightforward, extremely refreshing style of Sauvignon Blanc, not heavy or ponderous or anything like that, or full of itself, but just continuing to innovate along those lines.
It's so much of winemaking, and particularly white winemaking, is doing less, and it sounds like it should be easier to do less. But anyone who's ever studied Zen or anything like that, the truth of the matter is doing less is about the hardest thing you can do. Great writers remove words from their first draft, right? And so much of wine is trying to do less and have greater impact with it. And that's kind of what we're doing with this concrete aging. Can we get greater depth of character, but still keep this wine light and fresh and crisp and minerally on the palate? And that's what we're going. We are probably going to be making less and less Sauvignon Blanc over the years as we concentrate on higher and higher quality. And we just believe that's the direction to go. And so this wine's a nice a nice start. Yeah.
Well, Dad, I'll give you an honest compliment, which this doesn't happen very often, but I thought.
Well, Father's Day is coming up.
I think writing's an absolutely great metaphor for that kind of thing, where the goal with the Sauvignon Blanc, just like with great writing, is to convey that full force of meaning, but have it be concise at the same time, and not have it be this kind of verbose, big wine. That's not what we're going for. It's not supposed to be more. It's supposed to just have that greater presence and have that kind of greater flavor. And so that's what we're going with it. And it's extremely exciting, Dad, honestly, because you can see it in our best SB blocks and how they respond to just that kind of treatment and respond to winemaking that isn't just, hey, turn it and burn it, baby. Get it into bottle. Let's get it out there.
I caught your eye. It's been a couple years now, just before the pandemic. We were in the Sancerre at La Recette, and I caught your eye as we were tasting older vintages of those beautiful Sauvignon Blancs from La Recette, and they're aged for a significant period of time on the lees, and the Baron one. I mean, it was really, I think you got it at about the same time. I mean, I had that before, but it was nice to discover that together a little bit.
Well, I remember Dad drinking when I was in college. This was, I think I was only 18 or 19, but you came out to Annapolis.
You weren't 21.
And we, not that it ever stopped us. Sorry. So if the ATF
That's
is watching,
a family show,
let me know. But you were out in Annapolis where I went to undergrad, and we got a bottle of the Edmond Vatin Clos de la Niort, which is it's a Chavignon, so it's in the Sancerre area, and it's 100% Sauvignon Blanc from a single little parcel farmed by a family there. And I remember that being a bottle that just completely blew my mind as a 19-year-old kid, which wasn't, you're 19. Lots of things blow your mind when you're 19, but this was maybe more important than some of the other things that blew my mind when I was 19. And it was this bottle of Sauvignon Blanc where you could not believe, after a lifetime of being in this kind of modality of, I was growing up and thinking about SBs. Well, we make the SB every year. It's the wine we make.
Just freshen my glass a little bit.
That isn't Cabernet, isn't Zinfandel, and blah blah blah. And
beautiful. Thank you.
We make a decent amount of it, and that's all about it there is to write about the Sauvignon Blanc. And realizing that there was so much there. There's so much to explore that has been the focus of growth. I mean, that was 2003. That was almost 20 years ago at this point. And just realizing that was the goal. And we've now, the trip to La Doucette was a big part of that. Tasting through the Cotat, the Le Montagne, Sancerre, and just realizing, like, holy crap, there's a depth to the grape. And it's funny if you're the one person out there who's ever read our winemaker notes that we post, that can find them on the website, by the way. We love to wax poetic. We call it this noble grape, and we try to convey a sense of seriousness about the grape, because Sauvignon Blanc is, we're drinking on a warm afternoon here in Napa. We're shortly going to run out of the 2021 Sauvignon Blanc because we drink it so fast. But we've gone back, and some of you have seen us drink some of the older Sauvignon Blancs, and it's a serious grape. It's not a throwaway grape. We grow it in the right soil here in Rutherford. There are soils that are highly adapted to Sauvignon Blanc and are highly not adapted to things like Cabernet, things like Merlot and Cab Franc, or Zinfandel. And so Sauv Blanc is the natural grape for that terroir, for that ground. And we're starting, I think it's funny, and it's 40 years in, we're really starting to kind of crack the egg, so to speak, on how to make that happen.
Let's make a pledge to our frog fellows right now. We're never going to stop trying to make our wine better. We're
doing a salute.
It's like a Boy Scout pledge?
Yeah, exactly.
Hey, I'm serious, you guys. We are always thinking about, what's the next little bit we can do here to make this great?
Yeah.
And this wine is great. It's very fun.
We promise never to make crappy wine. We pledge allegiance to the egg of Sauvignon Blanc in the cellar.
Yeah. Hey, this use of concrete has been revealing.
No, and you're right, because the use of concrete is kind of like, on the one hand, you could think of it as like, oh, they're using concrete to what? Add concrete flavor? Hopefully not. Hopefully you're not tasting concrete in the wine, but instead it's just the right vessel for, I don't know, stripping away some of the artifice, stripping away some of the actions that we're doing. It allows us to do a whole lot. It allows us to be a lot lazier.
Okay,
so
I'm going to ask you a tough question here.
Okay.
Because you're in charge of the vineyards, right?
Okay.
With you and Frank. And we talk a lot about dry farming. Mm-hmm. And the reason that we have so little 21 Sauvignon Blanc is drought, right? We had 12 inches of rain, or if that, or less than a third of what we would normally get. Mm-hmm. Don't you wish you'd irrigated that year?
No, not at all.
Just to pump it up.
Just pump it up, baby.
I bet all your friends who irrigate are going, you dumbass.
You dumbass.
You know? No?
No, I don't think so. It's 21 was a rough vintage for irrigated grapes as well as dry farm grapes, simply because
you can't fool these little grapes.
Well, I think it's a misconception where irrigation, even in a properly irrigated vineyard, I guess, and this is maybe sacrilege to say on a broadcast like this, but there are people who do that kind of stuff responsibly. Even in that situation, irrigation is a supplement. It doesn't completely replace the natural moisture in the soil. 21 was a vintage where there was no natural moisture in the soil, or if that what moisture there was way down deep. And the blocks we had that were the least affected and pulled through that drought the best were the ones that had their roots the deepest, were the ones that were fully established.
And varieties that are well accustomed to putting their roots
well accustomed to putting their roots deep. And I think that was kind of the message, was that, normal year, it's cold and wet, 5 feet down, 10 feet down into the soil. In 21, it was cold and wet, 20 feet down in the soil. And it took that extra amount of work to get to that level. And it took that level, a vineyard that was irrigated, that had all of its roots in the top foot of soil, was no better off because there was nada in the first foot of soil. There was just nothing there. You could not irrigate enough to get a regular crop in 2021.
Well, and if you ran out of irrigation water in the middle of that, you were really in deep doo-dah.
Problem.
Yeah. Well, that was a nice segue actually to the Heritage Blend, because hey, you guys just love the heck out of this Sauvignon Blanc. It's a sign of the future for Frog's Leap. We're excited about what we're doing with Sauvignon Blanc.
We are having to allocate it, so please do.
Yeah. So
it is going to appear in fewer corners and corner stores and your favorite wine shops all over the nation right now. So please do grab it.
One more thing before we go off from Sauvignon Blanc. Don't feel like you can overstock yourself. These wines actually, I just tried the 18 Sauvignon Blanc yesterday. So this is a Sauvignon Blanc now almost 5 years old, and it was smoking good, right? Yeah. So we don't think about our white wines as being something you would age, and it's not like we're advertising that that's a good thing to do. But you shouldn't be afraid if a bottle gets stuck behind one of your cases or something. It was a beautiful wine. Yeah.
We typically recommend 5 to 6 cases per person.
Yeah.
is a good amount.
You've been talking to Tori. So
speaking of smoking good, the 2020. No, wait, sorry.
2020 Heritage Blend. Can you recall the blend in this year?
I can, because it's on the label right in front of me.
Yeah. I was going to test you and see if you.
Well, you can't test me because you can't read these letters.
So you didn't need to necessarily point that out. Thanks.
So 2020 Heritage.
Hard to believe we're this close to Father's Day, and this is what you're doing.
This is what happens.
Remember the good days when we used to have Father's Day 3 or 4 times a year?
My therapist has told me to block those memories out, actually, Dad. It's just how it goes, sorry.
Whoa, Jesus.
Who made that wine?
Who made this wine?
That's it, folks. That's the reaction he has every time we go over.
No.
We go over for dinner. He tastes the soup that he made. Oh my God!
All right.
Oh my God! Have you guys?
Okay, I can read this a little bit. So, how much Charbonneau do you think?
38% Charbonneau.
Oh, you've memorized it. Okay, and what's the?
I'm like one of those astronauts who's memorized the eye test. You know.
And then Val de Gay, 18%. Petitserra,
14%. I don't know.
16%.
There you go.
And Mourvedre,
15%.
13 something percent. Carignan.
That's a 15.
This adds up to 104%.
Well,
did you do this label?
The TTV doesn't check this stuff. Come on. So
I once did that on a wine label. I did it up to 104%.
Oh man, you've got to open another end on here. I've had typos in my warning label. They don't check that stuff. We love trying to slip Easter eggs in there.
Hey, you guys, this used to be just kind of something that we were doing for fun, Heritage, but this has become a real part of Frog's Leap now, and one that I hope we keep growing, to be honest with you. I'm loving this wine. What do we have, 5 different varietals in it this year, or 6? No, let me add them up. You add them up. 6 or 7 varietals in it this year. And
as always, the base is mostly Charbonneau, which, for those of you that don't know, is this rare grape that's been in California since the late 1800s. You and I had a bottle of. Stop doing math. I want to break your head here.
Keep going. Yeah.
You and I had a bottle of 1964 Inglenook Charbonneau years ago.
Yeah.
Actually, I think right around 2007, we had a bottle of 64 Inglenook Charbonneau.
Yeah.
That totally blew our mind. It was this kind of beautiful that what we love.
I think we had it for for your 12th birthday. I think
Thank you. It was one of those bottles that does what great old Burgundy does, which is this kind of concentration and intensity without weight. It's this super intense, highly intensely flavored, very intensely flavored wine, but was completely weightless, was super light on its feet, and it changed the course of this particular patch of ground. So in 2008, we planted about 1.5 acres of Charbonneau at the Rossi Vineyard, right in front of the water tower, and I think the 2011 was the first heritage blend that came out, and yeah, from the start, it was this kind of like Doug, our old CFO, was just like, what the hell are you guys doing? Like, you could plant Cabernet. Do you realize how many helicopters you could have if you planted Cabernet here? And we're still sans a helicopter, but it's what we're plus in is this wine that has transformed from this mere curiosity, Dad, into something that I feel like speaks to a lot of what we're about at Frog's Leap, which, if you're getting right down into it, Charbonneau, Val de Gay, Carignan, Mourvedre, Mondouse is in there for a few years. We've got some Grenache coming up the stake that's going to join the blend this year in 22. Riesling, what the hell is Riesling doing there? All of this is in the vein of those kinds of classic old California field blends where you're kind of looking at the blend going like, what the heck were they thinking? And the reason those were planted back in the day was a hedge. They were always a hedge against good years and bad. They were came out of a sense of experimentation. And
well, they weren't planted in small amounts back then. I mean, I'm looking through this list, and if I'm not wrong, 5 of these 6 varieties were more widely planted in the Napa Valley than Cabernet Sauvignon when I got off the bus here in 1975. These were major varietals planted all over, and others.
I'm pretty sure everything other than Mourvedre would have been more widely planted than Cabernet when you got off the bus in the 70s. It was, I could probably easily disprove that fact with a look at the ag report, but the sense of it is true where things like there were 1,000 acres of Riesling in Napa when you got off the bus. And does Napa need 1,000 acres of Riesling? Probably doesn't need 1,000 acres of Riesling. But a little bit in there is a beautiful thing, and it's a diverse thing. And as we found out in 2020, which was another drought vintage, was another difficult vintage, as we found out in the 2021 vintage, the heritage where especially in 2020, all the numbers were down. In 2021, all the varieties went way down in production, except for the heritage. The Charbonneau took one look at the drought and spat on it and said, what are you talking about?
Zinfandel almost the same.
Zinfandel made it right through just fine.
Yeah.
Mourvedre was like, this is my jam. This is what I'm talking about.
That's all I have.
More sun, less rainfall. Like it's starting to feel like Barcelona now.
Reminds me of home.
Yeah, back to Catalan.
Back to France.
back to Catalonia. But it's it was what stemmed from a sense of just pure kind of play and experimentation back in the day when we originally planted these vines has transformed into something that is incredibly fun and incredibly beautiful and kind of a wild day because we pick all these varieties on the same day. They all get crushed together into the same tank. They all get
I think it's important to point out these go all into the pot on the same day, right?
The first time we did this, Dad, and Julio, one of our cellar guys, looked at us. We had the Riesling on there, the white grapes, and he's like, "You're going to crush this with all the red grapes?" Like, I'm going to need to see the work order before I do this. And we said, "No, just toss it right in there." Because this is 6% Riesling,
Now, it's not uncommon in these old field blends to have a few white grapes, and it actually helps set the pigmentation of it, right?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think they knew that in the 1880s. Well, they weren't talking about, polymeric pigments and things like that, but it can help stabilize color.
We're always trying to come up with scientific reasons for common sense.
We're brilliant. I knew it was stabilizing the color back in the day. But mostly it's just fun. It's just beautiful and fun. And a little bit of a swipe at the hegemony of the grapes you're supposed to plant here in Napa, and in order to make the most amount of money, and are kind of on this track of optimization. You must make your Cabernet in the style that will get you the most points and the most money, and that's just honestly that's just lame.
Or worse than that. We know this ground isn't good for Cabernet Sauvignon, but we're going to plant it anyway because we can make more money.
The technology.
We have the technology to do it. Look, I don't want to talk down Cabernet Sauvignon, greatest red wine in the world. On one hand, on the other hand, planted in the wrong place, and it's a sensitive variety. It doesn't do well with stress.
I tend to think about Cabernet Dad the other way around, which in this positive light, where when it's grown responsibly and made honestly, it's the greatest red wine in Napa Valley. But those are two big qualifiers. And it's not always easy to get there. And honestly, some of that honesty for us is built through making things like the heritage, is built through the experiences we have and seeing the variety, seeing the diversity that's out there in the field. We feel like that's a beautiful thing. That's some of we have the big gardens here. We have our own CSA for our employees here. We have the Peach Festival, which if you guys haven't...
20 tickets left to Peach Festival. If you haven't signed up,
you better... it was 10.
Oh, well.
We've got a ticker. We've got a ticker in the corner here. It's ticking down. So we just have a handful of tickets left for the Peach Festival this August.
When is it? August 6th? I got a thumbs up on August 6th.
August 6th. Wow, that's amazing. Yeah. Remember that better than you remember the percentages of grapes in your own wines.
This was 2 years ago.
I can't remember that far back. Peach Festival being a really fun kind of extension of our desire to do lots of different things, to have lots of fun.
The bounty of nature that's here at Frog's Leap. Yeah.
I was at another winery in Napa earlier today, Dad, that makes about 50 different wines, and I don't think we're going to go quite that far with everything, but.
Well, you got your peach wine, you got your apple wine,
you got your blueberry wine.
Hey, back where I grew up, that was a big deal because we couldn't drink.
But it was, I don't think we're going to go that far. But having a certain amount of diversity and a certain amount of daring and fun and experimentation is kind of what you've been all about for 40 years, Dad. And it's 41 years. Where are we at again?
Something like that.
But
this is just beautiful wine.
And I think that's what we. I mean, it really helps that the wine doesn't suck, and
more than doesn't suck. Yeah.
But it instead fills a cool niche for us, which is this is got that kind of beautiful plummy character, really adding that kind of mineral depth to the wine as well, and just has a.
Okay, so we don't have a lot of experience of how these age. What's your guess on this?
Well, I had a 15 the other day that was tasted really good.
Did you get into my wine cellar? I was saving that.
Dad, I got the keys to the kingdom. I'm sorry to tell you.
I'll tell you.
Especially since there's only one key to the
There's a
entire
lot of
winery.
honesty comes out on these little sessions, you guys, you know.
And we don't lock any doors here. Well, I'm sorry, was that on camera? But no, these wines, I feel like especially since the 15, 16, 17 vintages, those ones, as the vines have gotten into kind of their full maturity, that's when they turned a corner for me, was in, especially the 17 vintage, I think for me, the vines turned a corner and had that extra level of depth and turned into a wine where everybody was like, wait a second, this wine's awesome.
Well, you know, I'm about due to get a little older, and I take great comfort in the fact that all of our vines are getting older too, because I believe all of these varieties do better. Because 2 of these are older vineyards, but the rest are vineyards that we planted, right?
Yeah, no, so exactly. So the Valdiguet, the Napa Gamay was planted in 1947. The Riesling was planted in 1978. But everything else is from 08 onwards, when we took over Rossi and started to plant our own vineyards.
And these varieties are renowned, particularly Carignan. You really want to. It takes years for it to settle down and become.
Let's not talk about young vine Carignan. Yeah. What's lovely about. Let's talk about what's beautiful about old vine Carignan. If you guys have heard us talk about the rosé from up in Mendocino, which is from the old Rossetti vineyard up there, planted in the 40s, and it was. Carignan is an extremely high-yielding grape when it's very, very young. It's been a battle for us to kind of keep it in check. There's a very low percentage of Carignan in the 2020 heritage, because in 2020 it decided to flash one of its other characteristics, which is being the canary in the coal mine for powdery mildew. Carignan gets powdery mildew extremely easily. And it can be a battle to control it. In 2020, we actually lost a significant amount of the Carignan crop not due to drought or anything else, but just because it decided to wet the bed with powdery mildew.
Let's watch this family show. Hey, I think we had a great question from Matt about how we decide exactly which percentage of each variety goes into our heritage blend.
Well, Matt, it's a very complex process of weighing how much of each grape we have, and then putting it in the tank. And the heritage is actually
and Matt, to the point is this is actually not a blend. It's not that we made these wines separately and then decided how much of this wine. This is literally in these fields how much of that grape
decided to come out of the field.
And we just take our chances that it is going to fit together. And I think that's what's exciting about this wine and why there's going to be beautiful differences vintage to vintage is because the varietal percentages, and that's why this is the one wine we actually put varietal percentages on the label, because they're going to be different from year to year, but that's just what the field gave us that year.
I would say the 2020 is an especially high percentage of Valdiguet and Mourvèdre especially are quite high this year, and Riesling. Typically the Riesling's 1% to 2%, the 6% Riesling, and it was in there because we just decided to toss a little more in there just for fun. And it was a lot less Carignan because of powdery mildew, but I know that I think it was the 18 or the 19 had some Mongoose in there. It had a lot of Carignan. It had very little Riesling. It's always going to be Charbonneau dominated, and I think that Charbonneau kind of sets the tone for the blend, which is speak softly and have this kind of hidden depth to the wine, and it kind of sneaks up on you as a Napa Valley wine, where sometimes when you come to Napa, you're expecting this. Everything's got to be big and heavy-handed and tannic and kind of over the top, and if it's got a little sweetness in there, 5 more points if it's got a little sweetness. And the Heritage just doesn't do that. And Charbonneau sets that tone where it's low alcohol, it's high acid, it's this kind of middle weight or bantam weight kind of flavors that instead are just delicious. And it's the kind of bottle that just disappears immediately, especially over the summer. Honestly, Deb, with a little bit of chill on it is actually really delicious as well, and letting it warm up in the glass. Any other new, from Brandy, any other new varietal plantings in the works? Well, we mentioned, the 18 had a little bit of Mongoose in there. We actually weren't super happy with the how the mongoose was growing, and so we've replanted.
Super happy. We thought it was terrible.
None of us wanted to eat the grapes, which is usually not a good thing.
I don't like these grapes anyway.
So we've replanted those, just 4 rows, 120 vines, to Grenache, and that's Grenache Noir, which is coming up the stake.
Well, and sadly we lost our Chenin, but we're rebuilding the Chenin block again.
Yeah, so we've got lots of replanting going on at Galerin, which is going to be kind of building up our Sauvignon Blanc program into eventually what will become an all-estate program, but also a large amount of Chenin Blanc, which you guys have had before. The 2020 was the last Chenin Blanc for a few years, but look for it with the 2024 vintage. The roots just went into the ground a couple of months ago, and they're growing like mad, and we're super, super excited to get those up the stake because we love the Chenin. We think we found a great home for it. And then beyond that, oh my God, we've got way too many ideas, Brandy. What's everybody's feelings on Touriga Nationale and
hey, we got to try it.
Grenache Blanc? And have you heard of Trousseau Noir, Dad?
Got to have some of that. Yeah.
If you guys could tell us whatever the hipsters in your neighborhood are drinking, we'll plant it.
What if the mix just doesn't work? Yeah, that's when, Dan, that's when we pass it off on you guys. You're our guinea pigs, I hate to tell you.
Well, Dan, I think that's where Dan's asking, has that ever backfired? Where does the mix just not work? I think it has not backfired as yet. And I think that's, obviously there's a certain amount of intelligent guesswork that goes, or semi-intelligent guesswork at least, that goes into it, where it's not a blend of 40% Riesling and 10% Teroldego and 20%,
Now, there's historical precedent for these grapes going together for the most part. And some of the greatest red wines in the world are exactly this. Shots of Simone comes to mind, for example, which I think has got 12 or 13 different varieties in it. Chateauneuf de Pape. There's many examples of this in the old world of these varieties coming together, and so that we're not shooting completely blind here. So yeah.
And Dan, I will say, like, we're not super concerned about having the blend be a specific percentage of one thing or another every year. And Chateauneuf de Pape is a great example where you have a place like Arias, which has a super high percentage of one grape and then nothing at all of other, and then you have a Beaucastel, which is everything. Yeah. All 13 varieties are in the blend, including all the ones that nobody actually wants. But they're all Chateauneuf de Pape, and they have this kind of identity to them, and that's the hope with the heritage. It's not so much that it tastes like a wine that's 38% Charbonneau, because that's kind of a weird thing to aim for, but instead tastes like an alternative lens on Rutherford, on Napa, on the Cabernet that's grown right next door to it, that is some of our best Cabernet that we have. Instead of, diverting, turning your eyes away from what that wine is, what this terroir is, it just gives you a different kind of perspective on it. And I think that the heritage is doing that. It has this different voice, basically, to say. And some people love the heritage more than the Cabernet. A lot of people love the Cabernet more than the heritage. But in our minds, they kind of just fit different lenses. And it's kind of like, what kind of pants did you want to wear that day? Or what shirt did you want to wear that day?
You wear the same shirt and pants every day. I don't know what you're talking about.
I do not wear my flamingo shirt to the vineyard very often. I will say that.
We need some frogs around here. We have one fly. Hey, I'm dying to try this 15 Zinfandel. Can we get started on that? Because I've been waiting for this all day long. I woke up this morning thinking about that we're going to have a chance to try this. I haven't had it in a while. I love this vintage. Yeah.
15, another drought vintage.
You guys know how lucky you are. You get to dive into my cellar and drink all my good old wines from time to time. Yeah, that's why are we selling this, Scott? This is terrible. I should be,
It's because we couldn't sell any of it in 2016.
That's not true. That's not true. Well, it wasn't bottled in 2016. Hey, John, you're asking about the Rossi Sauvignon Blanc. Many of you know that we were making that Rachel Rossi Reserve for a few years, and and we got very, very excited about that program. And we're morphing that program into this new white wine that's called Concrete Aged Sauvignon Blanc, and it is going to be some of our older vineyards. And so we're doubling down on that concept with a re-release, a full year on the lease and a full year in the bottle before we release it. And the first one of those is we're waiting for the labels to dry, and we'll be getting that out.
Yep.
And what we decided was to celebrate that technique a little bit more. We're going to bring down the price a little bit so it's a little more affordable, and we're going to drink more of it going on in the future.
So the idea with that wine going forward, John, is basically what we've been doing since 2019 is going out and selecting almost always the Rossi, the old Rossi block, but also some of the older blocks at Leeds. We've experimented with some blocks at Gallern, although those have not made the blend as of the 2021 vintage. But instead, kind of going out there and looking at which Sauvignon Blanc looks best that year and putting those in the concrete and experimenting with them.
All right, I'm going in here.
And pushing forward on it. So 2015, Dad.
You were working away in the vineyards, man. You were.
No, it was full speed work. I think I was actually picking on the crew this year in 2015.
Oh, take a moment with that wine, you guys.
Definitely reaching that kind of middle-aged standpoint with Zin. You know,
the nose is really transitioning, isn't it? Yeah.
You know, I think I said in my note when we were talking about this earlier, you know, it's definitely moved on from that, you know, big exuberant Zin nose that you get when it's super young. If you guys have the 19 or the
golden retriever puppy kind of.
No, is anybody else here? You know, what's going on? It's chilled out. You know, it's moved on from there, and it's moved into this kind of fully mature fruit.
This is why you put wines in your cellar, you guys. This is why you do it. Because this is beautiful, the evolution on this.
I think it's maintained a lot of its elegance, which is really, really nice. And it's lost some of its tannin and everything like that. I will say this is still a little bit tied up though. It's got some time to move.
Hey, Catherine has a good observation. Tell me about these two different corks, right? If anyone's opened both of these wines, we're using a Diam cork.
Well, you see that this one was like 10 cents more expensive than this one, so we went on.
There's a few differences.
No, they're actually the same price, but it's so. In the 2015, you have a natural cork. In the Heritage, which is the same cork that you'll see in the 2020 Zinfandel, you have what's called a Diam cork. And if you look just underneath where it says Frog's Leap, Napa Valley on it, this is going to be impossible to see on the screen, but there's a little D10 with a little, what looks like a little asterisk on there. So this is a Diam 10. This is a technical cork, an agglomerated cork that's been specifically engineered to be TCA free, so this does not have cork taint. It's guaranteed cork taint free.
So it's a natural cork, it's just that it's been deconstructed, any TCA removed, and reconstructed essentially.
Reconstructed using a vegetable and beeswax based binder, so it's what brings it together. So there's no petroleum or anything in these wines, and that was a big deal for us switching to it. So I think starting with the 17 vintage, with the Zinfandel and with the Chardonnay as well, you'll see these Diam corks. And this was a big move for us to get away from corked bottles, I think. There's no other nice way of saying it, Dad. I think we had significantly reduced our incidence of cork taint in our wines, but we had not eliminated it.
Well, in the natural cork world is catching up, and they've gotten the message. We'd still prefer to use all natural corks, but we just can't take the chance. And so we've been using the technical corks a little bit. It's allowed us to kind of double down on testing these these natural corks now for our Cabernet Sauvignon and Merlot are being double tested for TCA before we, and it's very expensive to do that. So anyway.
Just to elaborate on it a little bit, Deb, because it's actually a feat of engineering that's only really been made possible in the last couple of years, which is kind of crazy because corks have been in bottles for hundreds of years, right? And for hundreds of years, we've kind of just like dealt with cork taint as being, well, you know, every now and then you'll get a corked bottle.
Kills me though when you have a nice bottle of wine and the cork is bad.
Well, it was always annoying, right? And right around 2017, 2018, we were kind of like, this is so annoying to the point where this is no longer acceptable.
Yeah.
And so we are going to switch to screw cap on our rosé and on our Sauvignon Blanc. Our Zinfandel is going to switch to the Diam cork, which makes
We've had so much good luck with that Diam cork. I'm kind of interested whether we might want to consider going back with that and the Sauvignon Blanc. And sorry, we're discussing what we're going to do here.
It's technical details, but
you guys are our friends. I mean, you're our peeps, right? So we can talk about this stuff.
We don't actively want to send you crappy wine that's cork tainted. And so this is a huge concern with us because, you know, for every bottle that we opened up at a special dinner and, you know, we'd open up a magnum of old Zinfandel or something like that, and you'd be really excited to get the 91 Zinfandel, but fucking dead-ass corked in. Sorry, I didn't say that. But just, you know, and you're going, darn it. You know, just the disappointment is so heavy where we realize that, okay, if we spend just a little bit more money, because these corks are extremely expensive, and the corks that you kind of brushed over a little bit with what's now we've moved on to a company called Amarim for our Cabernet and Merlot, which is a natural cork. Every single cork is sent individually through a gas chromatograph, which is an incredibly complicated machine that basically sniffs the air around the cork.
I have one in my pickup truck.
You got one, I'll get one here. It's right next to my espresso machine. That sniffs the air around the cork and can detect TCA, which is the compound responsible for cork taint, down to half a part per trillion.
I was trying to get your dog to do that, and we could save a lot of money.
She's really good at like scarfing entire bottles of bowls of dog food. She's not so good at the TCA thing yet.
Yeah, food trainers. Yeah,
but so, as you can imagine, individually testing millions of corks is rather a feat because you have to do that accurately every single time, and it's extremely expensive, and we pay a lot of money for our corks because we don't want you guys to have crappy corks. The question is, why not switch to all Diam for your Merlot and Cabernet then? A lot of that comes from a knowledge of how well our wines age under natural cork and a sense of confidence but not surety around how they would age under Diam. I think that the results are proving true for Diam with things like white Burgundy.
Well, yeah, why does it say Diam 10?
Yep, so all these are kind of grades of
density,
the amount of oxygen they're allowing into the wine, which this gets into a whole, I don't know how deep down this rabbit hole we want to go. But
rabbit hole alert, yeah.
We got tons of time left. But basically there's, there's a Diam 30 grade, which I think the first vintage that we did in Diam of the Zinfandel went into Diam 30, which is guaranteed to have X amount of oxygen enter into the wine through the cork for 30 years. Of course, Diam's not been around for 30 years, so they would say that. But I think that it's our dipping our toes into the shallow end a little bit of wanting to guarantee that the wine, the most important thing being not to ruin the wine. And knowing that we have a certain amount of capacity, that it was not possible when we wanted to switch to all of these individually tested natural corks. They couldn't give us enough corks to bottle all of our red wine in that fashion, so we had just enough for our Merlot and our Cabernet. And that's the path that we've charted forward with this. And sorry, Kev, this is a long answer to your question, but it's a one that, it's kind of a behind the scenes look at something where, a few years ago we were going, oh man, 1% cork taint, that sucks. And then a few years ago it switched from that sucks to no. And you know what's acceptable? It's not 1%, it's not 0.1%. It's 0%. It's 0.0%.
Well, and I remember the cork manufacturer came and we were a 2% failure on our corks, and he said, "God, those are unbelievable numbers. You should be really happy to have 2% that are failing." And I said, "Wait a second." I said, "Let's say 1,000 planes leave from the San Francisco airport every day, and only 2 of them crash, and you think that's okay? That's not the way this works.
Look at you with your dramatic examples.
That was up there. Well, think about it, though. Hey, we can't see the chat, but Megan is letting us know that the chat is going, that you guys are appreciating this 15 Zinfandel as much as we have. So thumbs up on that. And Mitch and Denise, before, happy birthday, Mitch. We're going to share a birthday next Saturday. And actually, Mitch, you're younger than me, so you can still do a birthday, but I am done with birthdays. Now I am doing anniversaries. And so I am not having a birthday next Saturday. I'm glad you are, and happy birthday to you, but I am having an anniversary next Saturday. So let's enjoy it together. Yeah.
Is there a vintage that we're especially proud of from Dan? It's a great question, Dan, and it often focuses not on what you'd think, which would be the great vintages. Think a 13 or a 91 or an 18 or something like that, a 21, for example, where, wow, we're really proud that in these perfect, ideal circumstances, we made a wine that was pretty good.
Yeah.
I think the vintages you remember are the ones that were a little rough. 2020 comes to mind as being a growing season that was totally normal. If you guys have heard of the reverse sear method of cooking a steak or something, where you kind of start it out slow and moderate, and then you cook it through, and then you put it on the super hot heat, basically blast it with heat at the end. That's the way 2020 was, where everything was nice and normal and going just fine until harvest came.
Oh, you had to bring up a steak. I'm getting hungry.
You getting hungry all of a sudden?
Yeah. Well,
and then nature kind of turned on the burners, so to speak, in 2020, and 2020 was a crazy harvest.
I want to talk about my tasting up at the Ahwahnee. Can I do that?
Sure.
So for many, perhaps some of you have been up at the Yosemite Valley at the Ahwahnee Hotel, and during the holidays they throw these vintner weekends, and you're supposed to go up and you do a seminar with your wines that are around a theme, and then you have a beautiful dinner, and it's a great deal of fun. I think they're still doing them. I haven't been there for a couple of years. But you have to have a theme for your tasting, and I kept procrastinating, and finally I decided to do a.
Finally, they wrote you a letter like, "We're going to kick you off out of this tasting if you don't tell us which wines you're tasting."
Well, and my theme was the worst wine tasting ever, and the thesis was to taste the 5 worst.
You know how to bring them into the room.
Yeah. I wanted to taste the 5 worst vintages in the last 30 years, rated by the critics as the worst vintages. And so we had the 5 worst vintages. And I was proud of each and every one of these because I know how much work had gone into making these wines
80,
beautiful.
89,
88, 89, 93, 98. It's been a few years now. And no one showed up for the tasting, but it was fantastic.
So I had all the wine to myself, and I got hammered, and they were amazing. Yeah, but it's amazing how these wines. 17 comes to mind as well, where that's if you guys have the 17 Cabernet and it's still in your cellar, hold on to it, drink it. When you drink of it, think of 17 was an incredibly difficult vintage from start to finish. It was rainy, and then it was wet, and then it was dry, and then it was hot, and then it was cold all of a sudden, and then it was freaking blistering hot again. And then there were fires at the end of the year, and it was such a battle. And we ended up with a wine that I'm going to drink for the rest of my life. You can keep going back to, and it's not euphoric recall. It's just a memory of all the hard work you put into those kinds of vintages and how all that hard work pulled off. From Gary, any plans to do a vertical tastings from John's cellar?
He's doing it all the time.
Only when you're on vacation, dude.
Hey, I think actually at the Peach Festival, something new this Peach Festival, if any of you are coming, did we mention there are only 10 tickets left? Oh, down to 8.
Latest news.
We're doing a vertical, a mini vertical tasting at the Peach Festival down in the Barrel Shave, so that's going to be fun. But we look for every opportunity we can to go back and try these older wines for sure. We have not tasted the whole cellar in one sitting in a long time. We need to do that. So that's coming our way soon. Yeah, and maybe we'll live cat. What do they call that when you televise it? Maybe we'll televise
it. We'll televise it on TikTok. How about that?
I don't know what TikTok is.
Yeah, well, it's not television.
Okay. Hey, now Joe wants to know. You're killing me, Joe. With which of these wines you want to drink with some ribs? I think we have to ask the question. What kind of ribs, right? Yeah.
No, and Joe, it really depends on if you're putting any kind of chili spice or anything that's a little bit on the hot side with it, which I love to do. Put a little, ancho chili or Urfa chili on my ribs just to give it a little bit of kick. I'd go with this, and I think that one thing that's interesting about the 15 Zin is that the tannins are fully resolved, and tannins are typically what are going to be antagonistic with spiciness in food, and so the 15 Zin is honestly one of those few red wines that, if you've got a little bit of a chili rub on your ribs or whatever it is, or some tacos or something like that, it could probably hold up to that. Where the 2020 Heritage, if you just got kind of a straightforward
you still have some of that in your glass?
Short ribs.
Smell the pepperiness coming out in this wine now?
But it's exactly it. Is that pepperiness is going to pair super well with a beef short rib or a more traditional rub on a baby back ribs, and so that's going to be a better pairing for that, especially with a little bit of a chill.
Well, and honestly, the 2020 Heritage Blend is just too young, too. I mean, that wine is going to be so good with a couple more years on it. So drink up your 15 Zin, or if you got, and honestly, I'll be honest with you, go back into your cellar and find a nice Frog's Leap Cabernet or Merlot, because with the ribs, they're there.
Yeah, the Merlot. I think an older Merlot especially would be, or even a younger Merlot, honestly, would be. So a Merlot with at least a couple years on it would be an ideal pairing for those ribs. And Danielle, if there's one Frog's Leap,
I want to know which one of these wines are you going to drink with your father on Father's Day?
Oh boy.
Yeah.
Let's see, Dad. Let's go back to.
Because I was going to bust out that bottle of Petrus, but I think Danielle's got a good point. We should.
No, you can open the Petrus. Don't let me stop you.
Hey, any wine you drink with your dad is a good one, and any time you can be with your pops, it's a good thing.
Yeah, but she did specifically ask Frog's Leap wine.
So. Oh yeah, but any
Frog's Leap Petrus is I think still in the works, but I'd probably go back to an older Cabernet, which for me is still those wines are what. Remind me of home, which is remind me of why I'm here making wine here with Frog's Leap with my dad, with my family, is taking these older bottles that can kind of cut through the noise of years and kids and jobs and stresses and all of this stuff, and it takes you back to that time and place that where it was pretty sweet and it still tastes good, and so that. For me, a 12 or 13 Cabernet will be probably on the dock at one of my first vintages here working for Froggy. Yeah. So, or I don't know, something earlier too.
Maybe
depending whatever I can steal from your cellar. What do you got that's good in there?
Yeah, I got plenty of good stuff in there. Don't worry. Hey, we've wasted another hour of your time, you guys. But I want to close by saying we really enjoy. Yakking it up a little bit about these wines. These are three beautiful wines. I hope you enjoy them. Please give us some feedback. You guys play an essential role in our winery, and that you're our feedback mechanism too. And believe me, we read when you get back to us, or when you drop us a note, or let us know what you're tasting, what you're finding in the wines. It means a lot to us, and so keep that up.
Please do keep it up. The notes we get from points of contact that you guys have, and you guys know that Nathan's, Megan, everybody on the fellowship team, when you send them a note.
We got a new girl, Kirsten. She's fitting right in. Yeah,
fitting right in. So whenever you guys get a note and get an urge to send Megan or anybody on the team a note, we always hear about it, good or ill. So we want to hear from you guys, because we don't read our Yelp reviews or anything like that. So But we love hearing from you guys about what you think of the wines, and because you guys are kind of our favorite customers. So
yeah, yep. Well, here's to you. Here's to being with your kid on Father's Day, almost. And stay in touch. We'll see some of you at the Peach Festival. Please let us know what you're drinking and what's good, and enjoy these wines. And we'll be.
A reminder: if you stop by during harvest, you'll be put to work.
Yeah. Well, believe me, it's a great time to come and visit the winery. So people are out and traveling again. So let us know if you're going to be at the winery, and we'll put you to work.
We'll have you pulling leaves out of the picks. So,
yeah. So good drinking to you guys, and have a great weekend. Have a great Father's Day. Have a great
Happy Father's Day, Dad.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, you're not getting off that easy though. You know.
Where's my bottle of Ventures?
Yeah, we know where are those ribs.
Worthless son.
Take care, you guys. Enjoy.